These are my full spoiler-free thoughts on why Dune Part 2 is an absolute masterpiece. It all starts with Timothée Chalamet as Paul. I thought he was a great casting for Dune Part 1, but that was really more building up the world rather than the characters, and this part he really gets to shine as Paul. This movie really shines because it spends a lot of time having Timothy just learn the Fremen culture, but he pulls it off perfectly, and then there's a ton of different changes in his character's emotional state and his outlook just on the world in general, and he pulls it off perfectly. Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica was one of my favorite parts of Dune Part 1, and she's even better in this movie. It is an absolutely unhinged performance from her. Powerful and mesmerizing are the only words I can use to describe her performance every time she's on screen. Zendaya finally got her bigger role as Chani in this movie, and she really is the heart of this movie, because a ton of the emotional beats of the movie rely on Zendaya's character, and she pulls it off great. Javier Bardem as Stilgar, again, incredible casting here. He has a lot of the funniest lines in the movie, and they really work. But he's not just comedy relief, he also provides an amazing perspective for the audience on how different Fremen view what's going on in the story. We gotta talk about the Harkonnen family. Somehow the Baron got even creepier and more unsettling in this film. I don't know how it's possible, but they did it. Whoever cast Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha needs a raise. Like, he transforms into this absolute psychopath, and it is an incredible villain performance, and he also seems seriously related to Stellan Skarsgård with his performance and voice he's doing in this movie. Florence Pugh barely has any screen time, but it's actually more than she has in the original book, and she is a master between this and Oppenheimer of coming into a story with like 5 minutes of screen time max and giving a super powerful performance. Christopher Walken is just Christopher Walken. He's incredible. The second point I have to touch on is the score is absolutely masterful. It raises so many scenes to an entirely new level because Hans Zimmer is just that guy. It's unapologetically on the nose and obvious to very clearly communicate certain points of the story to the audience, and I think it works beautifully. I also just love how much we get to see about the Fremen in this movie. We get to learn a ton about their ways of life and thoughts on things. We also see a ton of their technologies, weapons, and fighting styles, which are unbelievably cool and give you some of the best action sequences in the film. Speaking of the action, that's another huge positive for this movie. Like, the opening action sequence sets the tone immediately, and it's incredible. And a lot of the action in this film is set against huge set pieces, but the combat is actually really close quarters and hand to hand, and it's a really cool mix that gives an amazing effect. I have to mention the cinematography and the visual effects. Like, first of all, nothing in this movie looks fake. It feels like you're really on Arrakis. There's not one scene you can point out, oh, that's a bad green screen, that's a bad outfit there. It's all so realistic. And especially the sandworms this time around, they are insanely detailed. And the cinematographer, Greg Fraser, absolutely cooked on this movie. There's just so many cool uses of lighting, different camera angles, close-ups, and it's all just so effective. It's so beautiful to look at. I also love how ruthless, bold, and just straight up weird this movie gets. Like, we saw peaks of it in the Dune Part 1, but now we go full into this universe, and it is just unhinged.